Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, April 11th. Call to order at 6:32 p.m. First item of business, discussion town response to COVID-19. Any updates? I don't think I've opened
haven't gotten our count.
the count for the week, or
We haven't gotten the counts yet,
Okay.
but no other updates at this time.
And last week's, I think, was,
3?
3, I believe.
okay, I was gonna say somewhere between 1, 2, and 3 in the last week, say, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that topic? Any concerns?
I have none.
Okay. Discussion regarding traffic control in Erving Center impacts. I don't know of any updates there.
Put it in your packet more as part of the ATM review, which is your next topic, but you have your revised
The bridge.
proposal in your packet,
Right.
and hopefully it reflects all the changes that you wanted.
Okay. We'll look at it during that if that works.
That's fine.
Okay. Which is next? Review of the draft annual town meeting warrant.
Hopefully my explanation made sense about what has been revised. Everything that has a change from the last two weeks, the meetings that you have with the FinCom is in red font. And then there was the 2 additional articles that you approved back on March 28th, the addition of Poplar Mountain Road, as well as the article to consider adopting the preliminary tax billing system. So I believe I've captured all of your changes.
I noticed a few things, small stuff. It's being slow here to open, so if either of you had anything, feel free to jump in. There we go. So, I thought this was, it just popped in my head and it may not be accurate and it may not matter, but I realized we were setting, Article 6, we're setting elected official compensation. Some of their compensation is paid from articles that have not yet been approved at that time in the warrant, like the school committee. Does the order matter in that case? Because I know it comes after the bulk of them, which is our omnibus, the general operating, but I don't know. Water department, school committee, those have not been approved yet at that time in those articles, and I just crossed my mind when I was reading through it, and I logically thought we set compensation after funding is approved, because if funding's not approved, then compensation is at that level.
Yeah.
Then, but it's probably minuscule and may not really matter, but just in terms of order of events, I don't know if it actually matters, or if it's just a matter of we'd have to go back if it wasn't.
That's exactly what you have to do.
Okay.
And we've had that conversation before where we tried doing it in the other order, and there was one year that you amended one of the elected official stipends, and then we had to go back.
The moderator
and-
by
Oh, it
like-
went the other way,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
okay. Had to go back to general.
And
Right.
Operating
update
and
all of
update.
that.
Yep,
Right.
yep, okay.
But yeah, you can move the order.
As long as there's a method either way, I don't know that it is a huge deal. It was just a thought as I was looking at it,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there was,
where it fits.
yeah, I was going to say, if somebody wants to not approve a budget, then we'll have to deal with.
Yeah, just go back to, if it's that portion of the budget, there's all that nuance to it.
Correct. Or if there's a modification to an article that doesn't affect the line item of wage, then it's a moot point.
Right.
The only one that might pick up on that is Jackie.
I guess if it's a matter of, right, and me, I guess.
Yeah, right, right.
At the end of the day, we're setting it, not funding it. So,
Right.
if we then don't fund it, we'll go back and reset it. Or do you go back and refund it if you change what you set it to? It's
Right.
there's a little bit of chicken and the egg, it sounds like. So I'm
Exactly.
fine with where it is. It's where it usually is. Another maybe silly one, we always call it OPEB, which stands for other. But then the Article 12, line 6 says post-employment benefit, not other post-employment benefit. Is that? Acronyms are bad enough for everyone to keep up with. I'm just noticing it's not actually fully in the title. I don't know if it's supposed to be.
In the description line?
Correct.
In the table, you mean, under
Yeah,
number-
I mean, I
line
know it's a
number
benefits
5?
line, but in the description, should we put transfer to other posts just to be consistent with what we always call it?
That's an easy fix.
Next article, the capital improvements, 13. Line 6. Tractor, that's lawn tractor, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, I guess we don't use it for that, but yes.
Okay, okay.
Would you like that description?
No, I was just thinking it's going to, it would make me question, we have tractors?
Right.
And understand it better, so I didn't know if there was a better wording, and I can't remember what was on the request.
This is the tractor that you use for snow removal as well as ball field maintenance.
Right. The one that you go down like East Main and.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, maybe there's not a better title, I don't know, just,
Yeah,
I was just thinking of it as I'm reading it, was going,
it's a good question.
So is the other tractor coming up for surplus?
I believe it would. I know that the cab may be in a condition that may not be of interest to folks, but I don't know that the cab is something that has to go with it. It could be detached, I believe.
Okay.
But yes, I would imagine that we have no other use for it, so we'd surplus it.
I think as long as we have detail in the packet we're sending out in terms of the capital expenditures, just the other one that caught my eye was the Bridge Street reconstruction. That's not the full cost of it, obviously, because we were talking about Chapter 90, I believe, for the balance.
Correct.
And I know we wouldn't necessarily call that out here because we don't need an article to use it, right?
Right.
But just, as long as that's clear in the capital information that we're going to provide.
It's
because I
in the
don't know how to
budget.
put a narrative in there that, explains that.
It's in your budget book.
Right.
Because your matrix is more detailed as to what your allotted funding sources are, so you can give it multiple funding sources per project.
Okay.
But I'm wondering if we should call that attention in the article information, just to describe that this article is only addressing the raise and appropriation of funds, and for a full understanding of what each project costs and how it's being funded, reference the budget book.
That makes a lot of sense, because I was trying to figure out how to explain just one article in the description, and I'm like, it doesn't really do it
Right.
justice. And there's others further on that have
Right.
that too.
Right.
Maybe that's a really good point to add, to just say, there are other parts to some of these projects, and the capital improvement detail
Good idea.
has all of
Right.
the scope, right? Thank you. As long as you guys are good with that?
Yep.
I'm good with that.
Okay. When you're done typing, 14 is the next one. The title should probably be changed because it's no longer just a vehicle. It probably should be wastewater capital improvements,
That's a good idea.
because we also have the asset management plan in there now too.
Yep.
I mean, it kind of falls in line. It is a capital improvement. It's just funded differently, right?
Right. And this is the first time we've presented a wastewater article like this as a matrix. So, makes sense.
Right. In the article information, the other one was just maybe to clarify that the grant for 60% is for the asset management inventory project only, not to necessarily, I mean, a van shouldn't be a project, but just to be clear.
Okay.
And then we have the borrowing authorization for Church Street Bridge. Anything else in the articles, and then we can dive into the bridge one just specifically to make sure we've got everything we want in that proposal. I assume the revolving account for the EV charging stations has been sufficient, no need to make an adjustment, right?
Correct.
On the Church Street Bridge, was there an extra charge for, maybe I missed it, for the railing? The railing that's gone on top of the bridge that we were looking at, that we don't have a cost figure on?
Let me pull that up. So you're talking about the revised project proposal?
Yes.
Let's see.
I thought I had remembered in previous conversations that we didn't have a cost estimate for the wrought iron black railing.
Yeah, well, I also remember we had said that that might be an add-on if we decide to do it, only because we weren't sure about aesthetics. You know, you had mentioned, I think, even people fish off of that, and having
Right.
that extra height may not
Yeah.
work.
Depending on the height of the,
Yep.
the cast.
Yep. I mean, they don't fish on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But occasionally you see the kids with their lines over. And they do stock up above. So the odds of people doing that is probably pretty good at some point during the summer. But I mean, how much they do it and whether we should alter that plan, this is, I don't know the answer to that.
I was looking at the cross section and I didn't see the height, and I guess just aesthetically, I wouldn't want necessarily think something that high that was so high it was impeding
Right,
like view
right.
and things like that would feel
Right.
odd. I think for that small of a bridge.
Yeah, I wouldn't think, I mean, judging from the photograph of it, that it would be high enough to impede being able to do that. But,
You're right. Now that I've gone back through that line item breakdown, I'm not seeing that being called out.
Yeah.
So let me ask that question. And with that information, you could all choose to treat it as a like an alternate one for your bid package or
Right.
something like
Well,
that.
that's a good idea.
Yep.
But yeah, let me ask him about that question.
okay.
In general, is this revised package reflecting the choices that you all had identified
Yeah.
as preferences?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't compare the estimates of probable cost from the old one to the new one. Is it
Slight increase.
slightly different? Okay.
Yeah. I think it's about 80,000 more.
Considering how things have been changing, that doesn't.
Right.
Unfortunately, that doesn't feel that bad.
Right.
So I assume we're still comfortable with the 1.6 at this point? And
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
with an alternate for the rail, it may,
Yeah.
you know, we may have plenty, we may not.
Right.
Yeah.
I know we had looked for the max span. Is that like 4 foot longer? I believe was it 24 was what they were recommending before,
I
and
did
that's
ask him
28.
to ensure that it was the maximum that's allowed between the right-of-way on North Street and what the intersection between Church and Highland would
Right.
accompany, and with the understanding that we were going to go right behind the existing walls. We're not removing them right now, but it gives you that flexibility in the future if the three of you are working on some type of channel restoration or
Right, that
expansion
was
work.
the,
You have that space, but yeah, I think it's only about 4 feet, which is probably significant. People
when
may
it
not
comes
feel like
to
that.
the hydraulics, 4 feet could change quite a bit.
Right. So,
Yep. Okay. No, I thought the 28 looked like the wider options. I just wanted to make sure we
I
we
believe
were
so.
comfortable with that. And obviously, we'll have another look assuming it gets approved before it goes out to bid. But
Right.
anything else on the bridge at this time? Okay.
Nope.
okay, I'll get that number for you.
Number. Oh, for the.
The
fence?
railing.
Potential,
If it is
yeah.
in there and we're
Yeah.
just not seeing it called out, I'll find that out. And if it is something that would be above and beyond, I'll find out what that is.
Actually, going back, I may have a question. 1 second. Where did that go? Yeah, I don't have a sense on what the current railing, in the dimensional drawings, the current railing versus the proposed. I don't, oh wait, there's one. I guess I was looking at the right ones. 4'8" is the current, it looks like. But in the proposed, I don't see a height on
Okay.
that railing.
I'll get that for you.
And is the railing, I'm assuming what is shown is just the cast?
Right.
Or is that the railing as well? Because if it's just the cast, I mean, it looks like it's already maybe 3 feet, 3 feet something.
Right.
Yeah, you're talking
so-
about based on the,
Based on that,
Yeah.
yeah, if that's a scale drawing, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's on the right side, there's like a 3'7", and it
looks similar.
similar to the height of the railing. So if we already have a 3'7", I don't know.
Right.
if you
what
want to start
any
getting
kind
a
of
5, 6.
railing on top of that's
yeah.
going to look like. Yeah, you're going to get pretty high maybe. So just understanding a little more about the railing. It doesn't change what we're doing, obviously, but
Right.
that would be helpful too.
I'll get that clarity.
Okay. And I was just looking at the last, I think it's the last dimensional drawing, 3-sided frame cross section when I was asking those
Okay.
around the proposed. Okay, that was my last one. Back to the 8.
Just out of curiosity,
Yeah, go
just to
ahead.
give you peace of mind, the middle of the wall is 3'6". The two end caps are 4'8". It was up a couple. I forgot that it was a couple slides ahead.
Isn't that the existing, if you look at the bottom of it, the bottom of the drawing?
Let me just double check.
Or am I looking at the wrong one? Let me go back to it.
No, you're right. My apologies.
That is,
Existing,
so
yeah.
4'8" is what
Is-
we'd be comparing to today, right?
Yeah.
For a change,
Well,
okay.
3'6", really. 4'8" is only the two end posts. They're elevated.
Oh, it's just the end
Yeah,
cap.
just
Okay,
the end
gotcha.
caps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So then, I'm wondering if the precast is gonna be as high as what we have now, or if that's with the proposed railing, so just to understand that better.
Right.
May define whether we want to do it, if it's gonna be that high. And the language in Article 15 for the bridge is borrowing and/or bonds, but also it's any other funding means available, right? Or do we need slightly different ending language on that? I mean, obviously, if it was free cash, we'd have to do it separate anyway, right?
I will double check. I've already sent this off to bond council
Okay.
about 2 weeks ago. So I'll ask that specific question if we need to modify it.
Okay. I don't necessarily think we're going to have the cash to do it, but just in case we do get some grants and it becomes just a match or something,
I was gonna say,
we can always go back, but if we can incorporate it.
if we're successful with some of the grant applications that we've been putting in, we may be able to reduce your reliance on borrowing for this, so.
Right, okay. Back to the ATM, any other articles of note or question? We have our revolving fund ones and we have our stabilization ones. On Article 18, is this only the third? I thought it was the fourth.
I originally thought it was the fourth. As we went back through, this is the third full payment, but you've also moved 170,000, which is part of your next payment. Well, you all had this conversation. Is that part of your fourth payment, or is that going to be part of your fifth payment? We have to figure that out. We're moving too much money around. But yes, this is your third $273,000 appropriation to the account. I was off by one when we earlier discussed it.
Oh, I thought it was the fourth one, okay. Because I think when we talked about moving the remaining solar money over,
Right.
it was, well, if
Once lead
this is
comes
the
in,
fourth,
Right.
and then we've done the solar plus lead for 100,
Which should
that's
wipe out,
fifth, and
right.
then we're done.
Right.
But
So
that's
you're
not-
saying this is the third, plus the solar money, and however we determine that affects
Right.
the balance has been done.
Right. So between the solar and the lead, you should get the fourth allotment paid.
Okay.
So we should have one
So in
more.
There'll
fiscal,
still be one more
in
then.
fiscal '24 would be
We
the
should-
last payment, assuming one of those is paid by the
Right.
other things.
Right.
Okay. And in 12 months will be a same question again.
Yep.
But we'll have this
Trying to wrap my head
recording
around
to
it.
remind us all
Yes.
that we had this conversation.
Okay. Okay, good enough. It feels short, dare I say, in a good way. And I know we have the annual town elections pulled out, right? So that's part of it.
Yes, that's a separate article in here tonight.
Yep.
Yep.
The only other one, and we're firming that up this week, as long as you both are good with it, is to put forth a 5-year contract authorization for the police department, assuming we get those final numbers tomorrow. They're supposed to be getting them over to us, and they still, align well. That would be the only other article that I'm aware
For
of.
watch guard?
For watch guard,
Yep.
yeah, sorry. To,
No, it's fine. Yeah.
yeah, for Motorola watch guard. Having been purchased by Motorola recently, they're just working on their contracts, so they're just getting them in line and approved. Their federal contract is in place, so we're trying to verify we can purchase under that on the 5-year and all of the nuance and how does that change anything. So once we get all that firmed up, if it's all still good, then we'll add that article as well if you're both
Yep.
good with that. Okay. I don't know of any others, Brian. I think that was it, right?
Only the potential
The
zoning,
potential
depending on
zoning.
how the public hearing goes this week.
Right.
We should have feedback from the planning board after Thursday.
Okay, and then we'll draft in, we'll generate the drafts for our next meeting
Correct.
for whatever comes out of that if there's any positive direction.
We've already
or,
confirmed,
you know, towards the town meeting.
we've already confirmed the FinCom's availability to be with you on the 25th to finalize.
To
all of
finalize this.
Okay. Okay, any other concerns? All good on the warrant for now?
I'm good.
Yep.
Surplus equipment request, IT department, second read. Any questions or concerns?
None.
None.
Bring back next meeting for a final read. Discussion of the Complete Neighborhoods Initiative. Mariah, would you like to join us? Welcome. Thank you. So we saw this last meeting, but obviously it was a little bit to absorb and kind of, I don't know if we even had very many questions yet, but so if you want to kind of give us a quick overview of it, and then we'll.
Sure. So
from there.
I was notified of this property by a group of other regional partners. Several towns and the Housing Authority were interested in putting together a regional application for the Complete Neighborhoods Partnership, which is a new program that the Mass Housing Partnership is putting together. So this is the first year that they've offered it, and it hasn't been determined whether it'll be offered again in the future. So they're kind of piloting this. Excuse me. And the purpose of the program is to really think about neighborhoods comprehensively through the lens of housing and transportation. So those two things kind of connecting different neighborhoods throughout towns or regions, and the idea that, you know, housing needs to be connected to economic areas and that really they should kind of all work together. So that's kind of the point of this, is to help towns create those neighborhoods, or if they already have those neighborhoods, you know, really make them more complete and be giving them tools to help that happen. So we have, with the partners, they talked about having a regional application with Montague, Orange, Greenfield, and maybe Deerfield, I think they were talking about potentially being included. But those being the main towns. And so they put together a draft letter of support, and I wrote up kind of our plan, which would include, you apply for a complete neighborhood, and then if approved, you get resources available to assist you with making that a more complete neighborhood. So we would be applying for Erving Center, Erving Side, and Farley. I don't know if they will accept Farley, since it's a primarily residential neighborhood. I don't know that it has the space to ever be more than that, just in terms of potential growth. So we'll see. And then in return for putting this application, the benefits that we would get would be, if you're looking at the slideshow, I don't know, did Brian send you the slideshow that has the resources? So
It looks like one, yes.
okay, so page 10 on mine, it should be what's your recipe for success? And it has an outline of community capacity building, so they could help us with kind of district planning, land use and zoning analysis, policy development, inclusive and equitable growth, so kind of visioning and training, readiness for investment, so this is a lot of RFP work, site due diligence or architectural tests or feasibility studies, and then
Can I interrupt you for a
Sure.
moment? So I'm looking at what I think is, what is your recipe for success, but I'm not necessarily seeing what you're saying unless I'm looking at the wrong thing. Did you find it?
Just, I think
Okay.
it's in your packets, page 55.
should be 4 columns that are different colors.
Program goals.
Oh, maybe it's called a different thing.
The footer says recipe for success. but
Oh, is it
it's
footers or
protocols.
headers? Maybe I'm not defining my page well here. Okay, I can't tell whether they're footers or headers.
That's a good point. I don't know either.
Yeah, the way they put them together.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether the yellow bar is supposed to be a footer or a header. Sorry. Okay, I think we're with you now. Page 55.
We're all on
Page
the same
55 in our
page.
packet. All right, I'm on the same page. Apologies.
That's
Please-
okay.
Please continue.
The last thing being financial help, so looking at pro formas or market analysis. So my vision, which I would lay out in the application, would be we have already gotten a consultant to help with the land use and zoning policies. We're working on that with the planning board. So I don't think that we really need more help with that right now. I think that if we chose to pursue this, we should focus on specific sites that we should activate. So if we're still working on the IP mill, in the future, that would be one of them that I think we would want help with. Potentially, if we had to do another RFP in the future, something like that, or visioning transportation connectivity within that neighborhood. So right now, there's no sidewalks there. If there's development there, we would really want that space to be more connected with Erving side, but also with Miller's Falls. And I know that I've spoken with the town planner in Montague, and we would love to see more connectivity between that side of the neighborhood with downtown Miller's Falls. But there's a lot of work that goes into even figuring out what direction to move in. So they could potentially provide consultants to help with some of that kind of community visioning, where we would be able to engage residents to find out what they would really like to see. If there's a developer who's now in the mix, potentially with them. And then also with the land back behind here. I know that the Senior Housing Committee has been working for years on trying to kind of envision what might be developed on that land. This could help kind of restart that initiative, because I know that we haven't had a lot of time and energy to put behind that in recent years as we've had other projects. So this could potentially give us a resource to professionally think about that and how we move forward. And then on Erving Center, I think that they could help advocate for best practices when it comes to transportation. We know that MassDOT has re-engaged us on improvements in the Farley neighborhood and Erving Center. We don't know exactly what they have planned. I think that while MassDOT, I'm sure, has best practices that they follow, I think it might benefit the town to have a consultant on our side that could say, here's what we think would benefit the town the most, not necessarily just the highway. And so they could potentially provide a consultant to kind of advocate on our behalf what we could see that would really benefit our village center, as well as working with the FRTA on having better bus stops in that area of town. And then I know that Brian had mentioned that when you did look at this briefly the last meeting, you had asked what our obligations would be. So if you scroll 4 pages down, I guess page 59 for you guys, partnership expectations, should be 4 bullet points. So the process is that we would have, if we received this partnership, we would meet regionally on a monthly basis. So our regional cohort, we would all be working on our projects. And then we would meet quarterly with all of the other partnerships throughout the state to talk about projects, share tips, figure out shared plans. And that would be for 30 months. So that's really a long-term visioning process. It's not, it's not by fiscal year. It's really, taking your time, being thoughtful about what the future of these projects holds. And I think that timeline actually makes me feel much less apprehension about starting another thing, because it's really a slow, long-term project that I think it would be incorporated into projects that we're already doing. And it would give us resources to do projects that we've kind of already had on our list.
You mentioned Farley. Was there any specific piece of that you were thinking of in regards to that area of town?
Yeah, so I know Brian and I have talked before about potentially a bus stop there, since that area is just not very well connected with other parts of town or the region. Also, just as we know that MassDOT is potentially going to be making changes along the highway there, again, just having an advocate on our side to just say, are there other things that we could be doing or considering which could benefit our residents there?
So similar goals as Erving Center.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this, and maybe you said it and I missed it, is this, I think it's the page before, is this application considered to be like a connected corridor? Or is it a region, or do we not know what they're looking at? I mean, I know it's not really neighborhoods, right?
What do you
If-
mean?
If all of these towns, you were talking Deerfield, Greenfield, et cetera, I wouldn't assume they fit under the connected neighborhood example. It's probably more of a is it connected
Oh.
region or connected corridor? It sounds more like a
Yeah.
corridor to me. I was just kind of curious which focus.
They might frame it as like Greenfield being a regional center and us kind of being the adjacent suburbs, or it could be a connected corridor. I'm not sure what they would consider that.
Got it.
Yeah, I was looking at that too, saying if it's Erving as a standalone and you use the three parts of Erving, you could almost call
Oh,
it
yeah,
a
you
connected
could do it
corridor. But if
Well,
you call
can do
it,
neighborhood.
but if you call it a connected region with the multiple towns, using the FRTA routes
Yep.
as the baseline of
Right.
connection.
I was thinking corridor as well, maybe if it's
Yeah.
5 and 10 and Route 2 or something,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, okay. Well, it was just curiosity. It's probably
I know
a
that they
definition
did,
that
they're
they.
really encouraging regional applications, I think because the whole point of this is connectivity. So that was kind of why we all got together to talk about whether it made sense. I was not aware of that until someone else had approached me and said, hey, I know that they're really encouraging regional applications. Would you like to be part of this?
If I zoom in enough on connected region, yeah, I guess that is our FRTA system, isn't it? I
It
was
is,
thinking
yeah.
it was. I just saw the Sudbury Acton link, Littleton above
Yeah, that
it,
was
and
the top
I
half.
didn't and I didn't zoom in. I saw FRTA and it threw me, but yeah, I didn't zoom in enough to read that was actually our routes. Okay, got it. Interesting.
The other benefit that I don't know the specifics of, and I don't know if they've even released information on the exact specifics, is if we become accepted into this partnership program, there's sites that we identify in the neighborhoods that we're identifying potentially have benefits for developers in the future. So they might be allotting money for, the point of this is to kind of activate real estate and transportation. I think there's going to be incentives for developers and potentially the transit authority. I'm not sure on the specifics, but my understanding is that they're looking to really support all of those things connected together so that developers might be more interested in properties that are named on this as well.
So given that piece of it, I had a couple of
Yes, please.
questions related to that. If you go to page 65, it talks about the 3 or 4, I think, bullet points of what they would assist through. And number 3 is create dense, compact, connected neighborhoods. And so I think a lot of what I read in there has a flavor of, it's not just transportation, pedestrian access, and connectivity of, different hubs. It's in the long range of creating larger, dense housing populations. And I'm not certain that, so I'll give a couple of other spots that I had when I was going through the very next section, minimum requirements. The third bullet says documented and demonstration of community support. And I would say, given the conversation we had at a couple of meetings ago about housing in Erving, I'm not sure we have the documentation to prove that we have community support at this moment. And so I'm not sure how that piece of it plays in. When I read through this, when it's all about connectivity and getting access to various areas within our own town, but also connecting us to other towns and communities, I'm all for that, but I'm not sure we have the backing of the people of Erving right now to say that, moving forward with a long-standing vision of creating housing throughout our various sections of town is what we want to do. So that was a concern that I had, and I'm not sure we could show that we have the that third bullet point of documented and the demonstration of community support. And then that's also under community support. It says, things like letters of support, feedback from public forums, surveys. I don't know if we have any of those to back that up. So I had some concerns with that piece of it.
So, and this is in the application. Our page
That's in the
65
application,
is
yes.
is the application
Oh,
page.
okay,
It
gotcha.
sit- Just for you.
Sorry, you don't have the same
I
pages,
didn't want to interject
yes.
and interrupt,
That's
but
okay.
I
but I believe
apologize,
it's
yes.
I believe it's the second page of the application.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number
It is.
3 in the bulleted list there was the dense connected neighborhoods. I guess I'm just curious, and I agree with you. There has been a lot of community discussion about whether increasing residential availability, et cetera, here is what people want. While I see that as some of the things that's in the complete neighborhood, things that are out there, I guess when I read our letter and what, or the proposed, letter and what Mariah conveyed to us tonight, that sounds more like transportation and visioning and things like that, and connecting neighborhoods, but not housing. Connecting existing housing. It doesn't. I didn't read anything in there that to me talked about increasing or changing the housing we have today. It was just connecting what's already there, and whatever may be at the IP mill site, but not defining how we get there.
Yeah, I was just.
So I just, in terms of support, is there support for transportation? I guess maybe to finish my thought, is there a known and shown interest in better transportation and connectivity between neighborhoods? And that would be more of what I think we'd need in terms of showing community support. I don't know that residential would be something we'd need to show support for in this application, in the context that we would, if we put it forward this way. I guess that's my comment.
So I think that, to your point, I think the bulk of our application focuses more on connectivity of existing neighborhoods, with the exception of the parcel that's back here. I think any work we do on that, I think the likely outcome is that it would result in new housing. I think that particular project, we have had a lot of very vocal support for housing back here. The regional application, we do have a lot of regional support for that. So there's been a Franklin County kind of housing webinar series that started a year and a half ago. So they actually wrote a letter of support talking about how many people attended those webinars, how many people are in support of regional, the need for new housing and things like that. So that is one letter of support that we have, and I know that we were also going to go to the FRTA to ask for their support. I understand your concerns. I think those are valid.
Yeah, it was just it's more about the application process of they're looking for a lot of buy-in from the community, and their application really speaks a lot to the housing development part of it. And it doesn't speak a lot to the connectivity of transportation and pedestrian access, which is what we'd be looking for. So I'm not, I just want to make sure if we're going to put the effort into, committing 30 months of meetings plus quarterly meetings, that we're putting, the effort into something that the end result in, 2.5 years from now is that we're upfront about what we're really looking for, and that we're not coming in under the guise of, foot traffic and connectivity, and then 18 months from now saying, here's your new high rise.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, that's a good point.
I don't want the state
Impression.
level get the impression that by signing on that we're saying that that's what we want our end result to be in 30 months, is that all of our communities are a hub of densely populated, because that's, if you really read into it, it's everybody that lives in a densely populated area has access to all of the stuff they need without having to have any reliance on vehicles. They can use
Right.
public, and so I'm not sure that overarching broad view really captures what I would want to see us going forward with.
So I think that the definition of dense housing changes a lot, obviously between Boston and Franklin County.
Yeah.
So our neighborhood here in Erving Side is dense for Franklin County. There's a lot of houses, you know, your average lot size is maybe, you know, a quarter, half acre at most. So this is a dense neighborhood for Franklin County, and if for some reason we did become part of this partnership and they started saying we're going to make this dense housing like there is in Eastern Mass, I don't think any of us would be interested in doing that because it's not compatible with the towns that we are in. So I think that we can make our goals realistic. They don't have to accept our application if they're not what they're looking for. If they're looking really to focus on high rises and very, you know, tall buildings and dense, very, very dense like it is in Eastern Mass, then they won't accept us. I think that they're looking for regional applications because they know that in rural areas like Berkshire and Franklin County, one town changing their connectivity isn't going to do anything, and that the density in Franklin County and Berkshire County are just not, they're not what it is in other areas of the state. So I think they're trying to make it, you know, more equitable for our applications, and then we can have the nuanced consultations where they're going to come out and they're going to say, we want to make something, we want to envision what's right for Erving. We don't want to like take our plan from Eastern Mass and smack it into Miller's Falls, you know. So I think that we can also show discretion if we were accepted. We don't have to move forward if it seems like it's not going to move forward our goals.
Okay. Thank you for that.
So I'd just like to
Yeah.
add to that is I have the same concerns that Scott brought out when I looked at the package and the information. But I do believe that because this is a regional program being put together to capture everyone as a whole, I think we should be involved in the process and not be on the outside of that process. And I also believe that in terms of housing, senior housing has always been an issue in Erving and has had wide support for years and still has that support. And so I think if this could help us get there as far as senior housing is concerned, the people don't view senior housing as a threat.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep, I agree.
It doesn't affect the schools particularly, although in senior housing you may have some children involved in that process and living situation, but not to the extent of what people were concerned about just a few weeks ago. So for those two reasons, I think when something that major is happening, we need to be at the table, whether we agree in the end. And I think as long as we have a voice and we can say what our interest is as a community, then we should go forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I share both that concern, like, and especially putting forward an application in a direction that isn't in line with what the community wants, and then even specific, which is not what we want to do, and then even specifically says, where's the community support for what you're saying? Well, we would never put that forward because we don't have that today. We don't have that feeling about residential in general. I agree with you, senior housing, we absolutely do. I think what throws me, and I saw some of this too, and I think you're highlighting, is some of the application and some sections, like on the recipe for success slide on page 55, the header of all those 4 columns was accelerating public and private investment in affordable housing near transit and mobility hubs. Well, that wouldn't be recommending we sign on for, because that's a really flat one thing we're focusing on.
Right.
How do we connect and add affordable housing? Okay, that's not where we are right now as a community or what we're focused on today. I still agree we should be aware and know what's going on around us, but that wouldn't make me think we are. Then you go down to the next one and it talks about regional applications where, one is a regional hub and others are just trying to be connected to it. And, I can see some arguments made for some of the towns around us are more hubbed than we are, obviously, because, as you point out, Mariah, the density in these regions in Western Mass, people go to different communities to do things that you're never going to, most communities don't have everything that a resident needs. And so you have to be connected to others. And then if I go down another slide and look at connected corridors, that feels more like what what might fit here. Maybe there's a regional center. Maybe you can say Greenfield has more services than most other smaller communities. But I just struggle with the fact that you start looking at the application in some of the slides and they sound like they are only talking about affordable housing in a larger neighborhood and connecting to it. And then other slides talk about all these other options that do align more with what might be something that helps and fits with Erving and what we need to do. So it just feels
I do think
inconsistent about what they're trying to do, or what is the focus, and how are there different options, or is it really just one? It's not very clear in that to me.
Yeah, I think the partnerships, like the different kind of layouts, I think are adjustable and they're open-minded. I do think that the purpose of this is really connecting housing and transit. And I think they are specifically looking at affordable housing. So I think if that is uncomfortable and not a priority right now, then maybe this isn't for us right now. Because I wrote our application to kind of have an outline of what exactly we would be proposing. And it's not specific to affordable housing. It does talk about, how there has been interest in senior housing, but we don't know what will ultimately happen there, just like we don't know what will happen at the IP mill or any other kind of currently vacant areas in town. So I think we can leave that open-ended because the request that we're looking for is assistance to do more visioning around that. But I do think that if we are uncomfortable really broaching that subject right now, that this is probably not the opportunity for us.
I will let my fellow board members chime in if they feel differently, but I don't think we're afraid to broach it. We've obviously been broaching it a lot lately, I'll just say. So I don't think we're afraid to discuss it. I don't think that we sit here and feel like we have community support for changing the current state of our affordable housing in Erving today.
Right.
Hopefully we will at some point, in my opinion, but today I don't think we've heard that. And it could be the ways that we've considered or even been have even been a possibility that bring that opinion out. So we'll see. But today, not so sure about that. When I look at the application, when I look at the draft letter and the directions and what you proposed in terms of the focuses, I think they make total sense to be part of that conversation and potentially, add things to the residents options for the residents of Erving. Transit's always a challenge. I also look at the application and I look at the last paragraph on the first page, I think it is, and then the next two, which talk about, what are they trying to do, right? The first one is affordable housing primarily and connecting it to things. The second talks about networks of neighborhoods connected with high quality, infrastructure for transit, bicycle, and pedestrians. And the third one talks about access to things, and it does sound like in the same neighborhood, but it also talks about focusing on non-automobile infrastructure to connect the neighborhood. Those things I think make sense here.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Yeah, I'm going to jump in front of you if you don't
you
mind.
had a thought, please.
So I brought that up because I want to make sure that I'm not opposed to signing on to it. So, in that respect, because the language that you put together as a draft for us to read does read about connectivity of all of our areas with a look at. And so, I wanted to sort of reframe that a little bit as I sat here and thought about it and listened. And while I don't think we have a large community backing to say we want to implement various hubs of affordable housing. We do have a need for affordable housing at the state, level of, within our own community though, per the guidelines, we're not there. So if this regional agreement and regional, program allows us to at least look at that and say what would make sense, and so because everybody has their own idea when you say affordable housing, a picture comes into mind, and whatever that picture is, it's different for all of us. But if we could have some assistance to say in Erving, what would affordable housing look like that makes sense for your town? If we're not locking into anything. Now, I don't know if our application would work. I don't know if that would even, pass muster, because we don't have sites in mind. We have the IP mill that we're waiting on what those proposals are, but we haven't had the vision of this is what we want there. We're sort of doing it the opposite way. We're waiting for the RFPs to come in and say, what are they proposing? And then we decide if they fit us or not. Based on what's being proposed. This is a little bit different. This is looking at what you have and saying, do you have sites in mind that you want to develop? And then they can give you assistance on how to develop them.
It's doing both.
I was going to say, I think
Well, there's the
visioning piece and
That's what I'm
the
talking
public
about.
meetings, I think that maybe aligns to what you're saying,
Right.
which is how do we have how do we take what we've now gathered through some conversations with the community and change those into conversations about what does fit with Erving residents' vision of the town,
Right.
of where we should go, and does try to improve our affordable housing situation from zero, right?
Yeah.
Because I still think that's something we should pay attention to. So, sorry, you were still.
No,
going with your
I just
thought,
want to
but-
make sure that if we are authorizing this, if we are signing on to it, we're sending in the application, that it's clear that we don't have, I don't want to say we, I don't have site-specific things in mind outside of the connectivity piece. I don't have, I never looked at IP and said, that's going to be a housing site. I looked at IP and said, there's a blighted building that we got to get rid of, and let's see what developers want to do with it. And so I'm not sure if we fit the bill right now, but if in 18 months from now, through assistance from this partnership, if that vision of what would it look like comes to fruition, and we get to bring community in and have, town hall meetings per se, and everybody takes advantage of that and gets to put their 2 cents in to say, what does it look like? Take all that feedback and then say, how can your program help us get this? Because this is what we now have documented backing for. So if this application gets us there, I'm all for it.
And I do feel like a lot of this talks about identifying and implementing strategies to work toward that.
Yeah.
It doesn't talk about delivering any of those things. Primarily, it talks about how do we help you get to a point where you can start accelerating investment in, but not. So that's more of the groundwork. So I think that
Okay.
maybe fits. And I do think if I'm going to pull on your point about about senior housing, there's a big affordability piece to that plan.
There is.
That
Yep.
was hugely supported.
Yep.
Not just in Erving, by the surrounding communities where people from Erving are or have been
They're
or
scarce everywhere.
want to come back to, right?
Yep.
Or want to come to. So I do think that one does fit and does check a bunch of those boxes and does have community support. So that's a much more narrow than maybe the overall larger affordable housing conversation, but not in a bad way. And I think connectivity for that housing would be very important. We
Yep.
have a bus here because we need connectivity, to be able to help our senior population
Yeah.
today. If it was housed here, this is not the only place they're going to go. So I think that's all
Yeah.
important things too for that piece. So
You had something earlier.
Through the conversation
It came
I'll
out.
have you finally gotten to all the points I was trying to make. But I would just caution you all that it's not Erving's job to satisfy everything in the application. Because it's a regional application, other towns may be really focused particularly on a housing project that they want to do, and that satisfies the application's need because it's part of that regional thing where our focus may be on the corridors and the connecting neighborhoods. I know
Okay.
that when we talked about it, other than the senior housing projects and the work that we're doing, the continued work that you've been doing in Erving's side to connect the neighborhoods and improve pedestrian safety and multimodal transportation. And that's something you've been doing for years now. We've talked about our need to go back to Erving Center and really put that same emphasis over there. And the residents, I think, have been beyond clear that they want attention in Erving Center focused on transportation other than the highway. That they don't feel safe with the highway. And they want to live a comfortable, safe life around that space. And so I know we were having that conversation, trying to imagine where we wanted that technical support. For Erving Center, it was completely focused on how do we make people feel safe, that they can coexist in proximity to the highway and have a downtown that they like, parks that they want to enjoy, and do that in a variety of ways. So I really do think it's tailored to the priorities that Mariah has identified in the draft materials. And yes, there's a larger focus in here, but that's likely what our partners are focusing on, and not our interest.
Yeah. My last point was going to be that your draft letter hits all the points that I would be in support of. My only concern was the documentation that they were
Right.
presenting seemed a lot more overarching and more than we were looking for at the time. But
Right.
looking at your draft letter that you wanted us to review, you know, I can support that and those focus points that are in there. So.
The only point I would make in the letter is in the second to last paragraph, just to further quantify the care drive parcel into senior housing. Not necessarily just housing, it's really, we're only focused on, at least in that area, the only focus in housing is senior housing.
True.
Just to-
Adding that
Just
one
to
word.
be really
yeah.
clear,
Yeah.
because
I would
that's
agree.
maybe just to
Yeah.
ensure that, you know, and I read the, you know, former IP mill connectivity to the surrounding neighborhood, whatever its use may be. It's not use specific, it's
No,
just,
because
just
connectivity,
accessibility, that's a really difficult spot.
if we got a RFP that came back with commercial and industrial, you're going to want connectivity there.
Yeah.
Right.
Regardless of what the proposal is, you're going to want to be connected. You're going to want the people, the residents from the neighboring town, the neighboring neighborhoods to be able to get there, whatever it is.
Right, or for if it's a business employees or industrial.
Correct.
To go places to get things.
To and from work.
Even improving the trucking ability to navigate.
I know, that whole
It's
area is
already
difficult.
dangerous just for industrial use.
Right,
True.
Right.
Very true, yeah.
yeah, okay.
So, yeah, other than, I'm be in favor of adding just that one caveat about senior housing here, because that's the piece that it's the perfect location to have it.
Yeah, I can definitely add that, and I think that that's appropriate here. I don't remember the last time that we've talked to you about this, but just so you know, the last conversation that we had with developers and with the state about this was that it's going to be difficult to make that senior housing. I don't think we should stop trying. But it's a great location for housing, especially for senior housing, giving all the amenities. But because of our 0% affordability right now, they don't like to limit affordable housing. And so that was actually one of the conversations I think Brian and I had when there was a whole bunch of hubbub at the IP mill, was that if that becomes affordable housing that is available to anyone, that would potentially unlock the ability for us to put senior housing back here, because we've shown an effort to make affordable housing available to everyone, which would then put us on the map for allowing senior housing. We don't know that that's going to happen. We don't know if we want that to happen, but it is kind of a chicken and egg thing of we want affordable senior housing, but how do we make that happen? So I'm happy to add that in there, but just so you all have that information to mull over. It might be challenging.
It's interesting to know. That makes sense, but I didn't realize that was the state's view, I guess, if you will, of they would prefer affordable, unlimited versus limited first.
Right.
Well,
And that makes sense, or restricted.
if we were at, 7%, it'd be different.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
I get the philosophy, I didn't know they were of that mindset. That
I
makes
don't,
sense.
I still stand behind putting that language in there.
Yep.
Because this is a long-range plan, and the long-range plan for me is still senior housing there. And that means before we can do that, we can still put the plan together over the next 30 months. Maybe we satisfy increasing from 0 to 1, 2, or 3% over those 30 months, which then opens the window for a developer to come in and say, we're making strides, and this is our overarching plan over the next 10 years. and give us some wiggle room to be able to put in our senior housing development here, you know?
I think if they could help us with the visioning and the strategy for the entire community of Erving that the citizens were comfortable with in terms of getting enough affordable to then get senior,
Yes.
to have the two come together, I mean, I think that would be huge.
Yep.
Especially if that's going to be necessary to get to that point.
Yeah. The other tangential thing I would just offer to that is that the housing production plan that Brian's mentioned a few times is basically that tool. It's a big endeavor. We did end up getting our the local assistance funding to do part of that, but it was so small that a housing production plan costs like $20,000 to do. And FERCog gave us a very small piece of our local assistance, which is less than $10,000 to put towards that. But we would have only really been able to put together data for like one chapter of it. But they wanted a commitment for us to be able to do the whole thing within the next, year and a half. Basically, by the end of next year, we would have the whole thing done, which we would have to have money to pay for and the time to do it. It's a very large community engagement process. I think that's all stuff that we need to do, and I think that's very important. But the timing of it did not make sense. We already have so much on our plate. So I do think that the housing production plan is something that we should definitely keep an eye on in the next couple of years, because I think that that is kind of the point that we're approaching, where we kind of need to have that comprehensive conversation around what do people want in Erving. We've heard a few things that they don't want, but what do we want, and what do we need, and how do we make those compatible? And I think that part of this might be visioning some of that, of having those conversations, or what would make senior housing possible back here. Maybe part of that is like a market study to figure out, what would a developer be looking for? What would make this reasonable? It might be having conversations with the state to ask, what can we do to satisfy your needs to make that possible? So I think we could potentially use this as a tool to leverage some of those conversations.
Anything else on that topic? Are we?
I'm all set.
Do we want to move forward with a letter of interest support as amended?
As amended?
As amended, yeah.
As amended?
Is that a motion, or you want me to make a motion?
I guess I'll make a motion that we, let me just go back to it 1 second. I'll make a motion that we submit a letter of support of a regional application to the Complete Neighborhood Partnership as draft presented and amended tonight.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I will print
you,
out a copy as amended, and if you all don't mind signing that tonight, that would be super helpful, because then I can scan that and send it to the regional pool.
Yes. Can you just update the date as well, please?
Oh,
To
yes.
today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mariah. Review of the FY23 budget requests and revenue. So this is the summary sheet with the adjustments from everything that we've done so far and what's incorporated in the warrant draft. As well as fixing some errors we had, which gave us more money than we expected, which is always good. Any questions or concerns on that?
No concerns.
Just the one thing that we talked about, the typo.
Yep, I'll fix
That was
it.
it.
Not financial?
Non-financial.
Okay. make
No,
it-
just a,
Yep, nope, it's
The
fine.
word wage doesn't have a D in it.
Understood. And the 1406 is the current rate from Montague?
Yes.
To Gil per se, yeah,
Right, yep.
for the current period, okay. Anything in the proposed operating capital improvement budget beyond, I'm assuming that's where that typo was.
that is, yeah. No, I have nothing else.
Bill, so far so good? I'm gonna read through it again, not tonight, because there's a lot
Yeah, we
there,
have- we have
obviously.
2 more
for-
weeks.
For next, yeah, for the next meeting.
The one new section, everything else should be included in like, Selectman Bassarash discussed. I'll go back through and we're doing an internal grammar check and everything else to make sure things look as clean as possible. But your budget message was an updated drafted piece of the budget that you hadn't looked at yet. And the financial overview section has all been updated with current information. So if for your next meeting you wouldn't mind maybe focusing any edits that you have in those sections, we can make those for you.
You're referring to page 9 in the capital improvement. And what was the second thing? I'm sorry.
The section that follows after the glossary goes into the financial overview.
Okay, yep, that's been an area where we've continued to kind of build out our visual representations, yep.
So all of that reflects all of the changes that you've made. I was waiting to build all those charts until I knew exactly how you were presenting the budget, so it's all been updated, your EQV's in there. A look back at your retained earnings and your investments in stabilization, all of those have been updated with the most recent information.
A question on the budget comparison year to year. The capital improvements, is that the entire year's worth, or is that only from the annual? Like if we did any in a special, are those incorporated in there?
I, at this moment, believe it would include everything that would have happened at annual.
Only,
I'm trying to
okay.
think what we would have done at special.
I don't know if we did any, but that feels
Right.
light, and I feel like we did more, but maybe we didn't.
I can go back and
You're
double
talking about the
check.
415?
Yeah, which made me question, did we do something at a special and then it's not in here because this was just the annual? So anyway, just something to look back at. No, we don't need to answer that tonight. I feel like the capital planning committee was talking about spending 500 to 600 as a conversation, which doesn't align with those numbers. So that's,
2 more clicks of a button. I'll have it for you.
I didn't have to solve it tonight.
Might as well answer it while you're thinking about it. Let's see. Nope, that's right. You had a capital improvement plan of $1,314,000, and that was sourced from $415,000 in raise and appropriate. So there's your comparison, and then you had $399,000 for the complete streets sidewalk improvement. So that's under grant sources, and
Yeah.
then $500,000 for the IP mill sewer and upgrade, and that was also a grant source.
Right.
So you're right. Your your total is larger, but what comes from taxation and the fees that you generate?
Right. And we had the forced sewer main, which was a borrowing, probably from the prior year even. And we had the
That's a good
forced
point.
sewer on, I'm drawing a blank on the road
Flag
name
Hill.
right now. Flag Hill, thank you.
Yep.
But
Flag
that
Hill.
was ARPA funds, that was grant, right? So there's, I'm not saying you need to incorporate them, but I'm just thinking through like all those
Right.
things that we did do.
We did a
We did a
bunch
whole
more.
lot more than, but the spend from the taxpayers' money was
Yes.
415.
So the question I guess that then raises for you, is there another chart that belongs in this financial overview section now that we're starting to do more and more each year with alternative funding sources like state and federal grant sources that does a look back and gives that perspective? Because you're right, that's something that we don't capture.
You know, I think in the last couple of years, we talked about how we were capturing raise and appropriate, and then we've
Right.
added enterprise funds with water and wastewater. Maybe there's grant funds,
Right?
and maybe it's just the bulk number, and we can talk about detail further down, but that's a big number.
is.
And or borrowing. I mean, that's another expense, right? That if we're doing, I don't know about borrowing because it's a little more complex.
I was going to
don't know
say
how you
borrowing,
do
I
that
don't
one.
know, but I think,
But grants, we
a
should.
one-off grant that was expended in the fiscal year to show how much work we do to go out and get those grants
Yeah.
and then utilize those for improvement throughout the town.
Yeah.
It's not a cost per se, but it shows how much we get done on
Cost offset, though. It's,
cost offset
Yeah.
that we get done, and it shows, that we're if we can sustain that type of cost offset and get that
Huge.
much work done, that's big.
I mean, it's more than $1 million in the
Yeah.
current fiscal year.
Agreed.
I
Right.
think,
If you
between
show somebody,
ARPA, between complete streets.
they would be
between-
nice to see next, side by side to say you did a total of $1.9 million worth of capital work. It cost you $415,000
Right, right.
because you have so much grant.
Well, maybe looking at, probably all the grants are capital, but if there weren't any, maybe you put a capital grants and non-capital grants, and then
Sure.
you can show that, like you like
Right.
you're saying. It's a really good point.
So would you like me to come up with some draft language for that new section? Doesn't hurt.
If you're,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's something we can put together easily by, 2 weeks from now, sure.
Is it okay if I just do last year and the current year, like a 2-year look back?
Yeah, I wouldn't go.
Like for EQV, we went back a decade.
Yeah, I
No.
don't-
Some other stuff,
No,
we went back
yeah.
like 3-4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can add more in the future, maybe we go back
Yeah.
5 years. But right now, I think just getting the year we're in and the year we're going into is
That's it,
to me.
yeah.
I mean,
I
if
think
we
we
know
just look
grants for
at
next year already, then-
22 and 23.
Yeah,
That's it. Nothing.
that's-
Stuff that you have readily available that you don't have to spend a lot of time digging through.
Okay.
Right. I mean, if you have something anticipated, you could always put that in there too. You could take a part of the bar for 23 and say anticipated if we have applied and are expecting to get it, but don't have it yet. So it's another
Okay.
one. I mean, even think of what Chief Holst is doing
Right.
Right.
with the
Yeah, that's
with the CSL. I mean, that's a
a
grant.
$200,000 grant.
At least 100 a year. Maybe it's a 300 over 3 years or
Right.
whatever it is. But yeah. So anyway, that's a really good point. I like that idea.
Okay, I'll work on it.
So we've already got work for you. Yes, let's look at it. We 5 minutes. Careful what you wish for.
No, it makes for a better product.
Okay. Anything else in there while we're talking about it at this point?
I'll do my best to go through it though and get it to you well before
Okay.
next meeting so that you have time to.
I've
Take
got
it.
5 people looking at it from their different lenses, and
Right.
so I'm hoping we catch all the tweaks that you all would want done before it becomes a final product.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll take the feedback as you have it ready.
Yeah. Just hoping not to give you the feedback on the 25th and say, oh, and by the way, can you change all these things?
If that's what happens, that's what happens. It's okay. It's important that it's right.
I could look at the charts for a long time, so I'm going to stop looking at them because
Yeah.
I love looking at the
Yeah.
comparisons, but I'm going to get. Okay, I seriously have to stop looking at that. Okay. If we're good, then we'll come
I'm
back
good.
with any next time. But your goal would be getting feedback before our next meeting from us, directly to you, to bring those proposed edits next meeting, because then we're hoping to finalize and mail all of it out.
Exactly. Well, and
Warrant, the
the
operating
last-
budget, capital.
2 years, you've done like postcards for the budget as opposed to the entire books. So you've sent the
That's a good
entire
point.
warrant home, and then we always posted it online, the budget,
Mm-hmm.
and sent postcards home. Is that an acceptable notification?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah. So that gives us 5 more days, maybe.
that's what I was thinking. That's
But
why I said
still,
in
we really
advance,
should
yeah.
finalize
Yeah.
what we expect by our next meeting.
The reality is I can order the postcards now, so they're ready to go, and as soon as I know that you've approved it, uploading, everything will be ready to go into the mail. And uploading it is just a click of a few buttons. It's pretty quick.
That's an interesting, not that it needs to be combined, but if we're sending the warrant,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're sending a separate postcard to go say, here's all the information that fed this, that you
Mm-hmm.
can go look up, is there a way to make it one thing, but doesn't need to be
yeah.
done this time, but I'm
The
just thinking,
cover-
like, is there a way to say, the link for all the information behind this is here?
We use the warrants all the time to advertise things, the cover pages, not the actual body.
No,
of it.
I understand. I'm
yeah,
just
let's
thinking,
do it.
like, why are we
Yeah.
sending a separate postcard if we're sending the warrant as well? On the
Want me to
same
do that?
day at this point.
And we've taken the election warrant out as of tonight, so there's an extra page that we're not using. So absolutely, let me do it.
Why don't you draft, if you want to, why don't you draft what it would look like and we'll take a look versus the postcard that you usually use?
Yep.
Okay.
And we can visually make a decision if there's a value difference there. Okay. Meeting minutes, March 21st, 2021.
Make a motion, we accept the meeting minutes of March 21st, 2022 as written.
Thank you for correcting my 2021 there. Jeez.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Unless both of you are ready to review March 28th, I was going to pass over. I did not have an opportunity to read them.
I skimmed them real quick, but I have not read them thoroughly enough.
Okay, we'll pass over March 28th, 2022, and bring them back next meeting, please. 14th water commitment for FY '22.
That's right next to you as well.
Just gotta get back up to the top for the dollar amount for you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm sorry, pages.
Make a motion to approve the 14th water commitment for fiscal year '22 in the amount of $47,264.47 for water use charges.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is weird in the packet. There's only one, right? Even though it came out as like 3 different things in the packet. I keep clicking through the links and
Only one what?
never mind. It's fine. Water commitment. The links in the packet like link to the same thing 3 times, and
That's
it's a
bizarre.
little weird. Maybe it's just me, but
There's only one, the 14th water commitment.
okay. There's like 8A and then another one, sub, and then B, and
I wonder why it's doing that. That's weird.
it just, well, does yours look that way? Do you have multiple links in your packet for
I don't
the
think
water
so.
commitment?
I'll double check.
Okay, maybe it's just me. Wouldn't be the first time.
Oh, 8B is it's the supporting documentation.
Right, but then under 8A, the third hierarchy down is also.
That's so weird.
It's really odd how it came through, at least for me. You have it, you're seeing it too.
I see it now.
Okay, it's not a big deal, but it just threw me for a second
What
there.
that must mean is that there's some, to not bore everybody at home, there must be some type of heading formatting in that document that's pulling that, because that's what feeds the the book
And
park
then
tree.
you added it as well, so then it's got three
Right.
sets of, yeah.
Yeah, but both of those links are pointing to the same document, so yeah, that's 14. Yep.
That's what I thought. Okay,
Sorry about that.
all good. FY '21 Financial Audit Engagement Proposal from Scanlon and Associates. So as I recall, we talked about moving to an annual audit, especially as we're doing more funding and grants and borrowing and all those things. It's necessary or at least helpful. So this is a proposal to do the FY '21
Correct.
financial audit.
We don't need to do a single audit this year. We didn't receive enough in federal funding to require that. So this is just a standard audit of all of our operations. And the proposal's for $15,000.
And the single audit being on a specific area of the budget if it was required by a funding source.
As soon as you receive $750,000 in a single fiscal year or more of federal funds, and that can be an aggregate of all your federal sources, we must conduct a single audit, and it would look at all of the federal programs. We haven't hit that threshold since we did the CDBG program the last time, so maybe that was fiscal year 17. We will absolutely hit it in 22.
In the current
Right,
fiscal
in the
year.
current-
Say
in the
that,
current
right, I was
fiscal
just gonna
year, yeah.
Between
say,
your
I feel like
ARPA
we've had a
funds-
ton of funding.
Yeah.
The school funds
Yep.
related to COVID, as well as their traditional title programs. And now CDBG funds are starting to flow in. We absolutely are gonna, yes.
Okay.
Potentially also maybe 23, may have some because some of those programs will carry into
Right.
23. So yes, that is a cost that we should work into those sources in future
So that
years.
ends up being a complete audit plus a single audit on the federal piece.
Correct.
So
It
it's
generates
two.
separate reports.
Yeah,
Yep,
so it's a little more work.
correct.
We're doing the comprehensive, it's carving out a piece, right?
Correct.
Okay. This feels like the same number it's been?
$500 more? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very similar.
Okay, very similar.
Yeah,
Rounding error in
Right.
this numbers. All right, any concerns?
No concern.
no concerns.
We have the budget for it.
Correct.
Make a motion that we engage Scanlon and Associates for our FY '21 financial audit in the amount of $15,000 and further authorize Brian Smith, Town Administrator, to sign the agreement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Next item of business is taking for Highland Avenue, 9 Highland Ave. This is related to the updated road layouts and the public hearing and the discussions with the Pollard, Mr. Pollard, in terms of the adjustments to include our infrastructure in the public way.
Once this is done, this will allow everything to be recorded at the registry.
And we've been in communication with Mr. Pollard, who's in support of what we're doing. This is the cleanest way, as I understand it, for us to clean the record, set the record in terms of using eminent domain to, or to do it order of taking.
Anytime you take, it feels awkward.
I
This is
just wanna-
completely with this
Just want to
consent.
quantify that this is a,
Friendly taking.
perfect.
That's a great way to word it. To that point, I spoke to Mr. Pollard on Friday to make sure he was aware that we were finally at this point. He's been waiting for this paperwork since March 5th, when everything passed at town meeting. He is coming in this week to sign the paperwork, and he wanted me to convey to the three of you his appreciation for you working with him on this.
Excellent. So you need something very formal from us on this one.
Yeah, I
I
was,
need an approval from the three of you that you're issuing the order of taking for the 247 square feet identified in the order of taking for 9 Highland Avenue. And those documents are also next to you for signature.
you said 247?
Yep.
About
Right,
247.
approximately 247 square feet.
And so we can carve some of that into a motion, and then as presented in the order of taking dated April 11th, 2022,
Correct,
and that's
exactly.
sufficient, right? Okay.
Correct.
We don't need to read the entire taking. in
Yeah.
You don't have to read the whole taking.
Okay. Am I safe to presume you are?
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, so I'll make a motion to issue the order of taking for the approximate 247 square feet located at 9 Highland Avenue, as presented in the order of taking presented on April 11th, 2022.
Second?
Does that satisfy everything you need?
All those in favor?
Aye. Do you also need one for the consent, or is that incorporated in?
I was just showing you that that's the form that
Okay.
he's going to sign to
Okay.
acknowledge that he's
Fair enough.
agreeing to this.
Got it.
And in terms of, we've issued the order, now we also need to sign the notice, but that's not, that's
It's
part
a
of the
separate vote.
documents that we'll provide, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
The notice just informs the parties of their legal claims or rights.
Yep. Okay. Next topic, discussion regarding town trash disposal agreement. I'll let you take that away, Brian, when you're ready.
I never thought we'd spend this much time discussing trash. Every time I think that we figured out our solution, something else changes. So in this moment, we are faced with a change in your disposal site. If you remember, just over 2.5 years ago, Jan came, made some presentations about disposal options, and there was a collective proposal to have all of the Franklin County towns try to ship all of their trash to a company called Community Eco Power. And we were going to get a locked-in rate for our tipping fee. And so we went forward with that, and we've been doing that. We're in the tail end of a second year of that 3-year contract. And when we did that, we worked into our hauling contract. That is the disposal site where our trash is to go. It appears that everything has now been finalized, that Community Eco Power has gone through a bankruptcy proceeding, and they have gotten court permission to sell the assets to other companies. So the new company that is purchasing the site where we've been taking our material, and this impacts everybody else in the county as well who goes there, they're offering to extend a bridge contract to us to get us to the end of the fiscal year, but at a new rate. So F&G Recycling is the new company. They are proposing a bridge contract that would start, it could start as early as this week when the sale goes through, and it would increase your tipping fee to $97 per ton. There is a conditional offer that's a little bit cheaper for them. If we would agree to go to their Wilbraham location, so instead of Agawam, we'd go to Wilbraham, they would offer that to us at $90 a ton, which sounds attractive. The challenge with that is I'd have to reopen potentially a conversation with our hauler because their contract says that they're to take it to Agawam. So I don't know what that adds for additional road miles, if there's an additional charge related to that. I didn't want to go down that road of trying to have that conversation until I knew where the three of you wanted to head. The other option, so Jan obviously is our executive director at the Solid Waste District, and so she's been working on this matter on behalf of us and Gil, who have the same hauler and we're curbside communities, and then has been part of these regional conversations. So she was able to do a little comparison proposal research for us. Republic is offering us an opportunity to take our materials to Springfield. Again, I'd have to talk to the hauler about changing the location. They're offering us a rate of $94 a ton to get us through 1 year. They're offering an April to April contract. The subsequent years, they're offering it for 3 years. Subsequently, year 2 would be $97.76 per ton, and then year 3 would be $101.67 per ton. So the prices in comparison are not that bad. It'd be kind of nice to know what your prices would be for 3 years if you were interested. But again, I'd have to talk to Casella. And then the last option made sense to ask Casella. what could they offer? And they offer a disposal site in Holyoke. So they wouldn't be charging us more, obviously, because they'd be taking it back to their own facility. So we wouldn't have to reopen that. But the price that they're offering us right now is $93.50 a ton. And then they're hoping that you would agree to a 2.5-year agreement. So the end of this fiscal year and then 2 additional fiscal years. That sort of aligns with the hauling contract that you have with them, because we have a 3-year contract with 1-year extension options. 2 1-year extension options, excuse me. But they would like the price increase each year to follow a formula based on the consumer price index. And that formula is in their narrative.
If we're closing out year 2 or year 3 of our contract?
You're finishing year 2 of your hauling contract.
Okay. So 3 plus aligns with the balance of 3 plus 1 plus 1.
Correct.
And community eco power was how much?
Stand by.
That's what I was just reading that letter, trying to see what we're,
Yeah,
what are we
I just don't
currently in
recall
for
what the
year
rate
2.
was.
And I'm sure we had an escalator in there.
I'm feeling like it was in the 70s, but maybe I'm way, way off. I hope I'm way, way off in comparison to where this is going.
I know, to see $17, $18, $20 increase per ton.
I hope I'm wrong.
I mean, April of '24 at 101.
It looks like we should be at 8160 for year 2. So year 1 was 80, year 2 was 8160, year 3 was scheduled to go to 8325. So yeah, you're talking
It's only
about
slightly better than 70
You're already
something,
talking a $10 a ton increase.
at least. This calculation, this CPI,
I was just going to
You?
figure out.
Northeast, I believe Jan sent some more detail on what that is and what that means.
The
that correct?
Northeast CPI?
Yeah, I don't know what CPIU is. I mean, I know what consumer price index is, but at least I'm assuming that's what they're.
There was
Yeah.
an additional email, you're right.
I can pull it up too. I don't.
Let me see.
If you don't mind, while you're looking that up, when can we no longer send trash to Community Eco Power? When the sale goes through, or already?
We're gonna have to do that. It's got to go somewhere at the end of the week. I mean, the reality.
I mean,
is
well, that's what I
everybody-
mean. Is it this week, or is it when the sale goes through, or when is
I
it, or
believe
is
it's
it
happening
now?
on
I mean,
April
that's-
15th. So that is that Thursday?
So it's
Yeah.
it's in a few days. It's got to go somewhere
Friday.
else this week.
And ours is scheduled to be dropped off Friday. So
So is that this week or next week? Don't know, but
That I
either
don't
way,
know.
okay. Either way, it's now.
correct. And we've been notified of the court proceedings, like all the customers were. But the decision was literally made in the last 2 weeks. So it's happening for all this lead up. It's now happening very, very quickly. And so everybody's scrambling. I was able to be part of a 3-county-wide call 2 weeks ago just to find out what was happening. All of these conversations and negotiations with different hauling companies to disposal sites has happened really coming together in the last week, couple days. I was getting updates Friday morning. So this is all evolving pretty quickly. And I think in some ways, some people are saying, let's not necessarily rush into a 3-year contract. Do you just buy some time to get through like a bridge agreement to get us to June 30 and give us a little breathing room just to figure out what you want to do? Then again, some of these may be advantageous to lock in, and so if you felt comfortable staying with a particular hauler, this was the first time you had a different disposal site than your hauler. In the past, your hauler was also your disposal entity. So it wouldn't be unusual for you to go back to a model that the hauler was responsible for the disposal.
And I don't know what makes CPIU Northeast versus
trying to
just
find out.
CPI, but I did find that document that Jan sent.
You did find it?
I did. And she noted that the CPIU for Northeast, February 21 to February 22, so just doing an annual year, was 6.6%. And I believe the language was 5% or the higher,
Or the higher.
of.
Yeah, because I was
CPI.
looking at just the minimums, of 5%, and you're looking at escalators that get you up there. Let's see, they start at 93.50, 98.18, 103.08, 108, and 24. Just for 3 years of escalation at 5%. Never mind if the CPI is greater.
Yeah, I'm looking at, she has a chart in here, and I'm wondering if she used the 6.6 because she has 99, she did. She has 99.67 for year 2 for Casella at the 6.6, and then 106 for year 3. Well, I guess it shouldn't be really year 3, it's,
Yeah, it would be the new year 2 or.
well, yeah, no, I guess it is because 93.50 is for a year 1 plus, right? It's the rest of this fiscal year and the next fiscal year.
Yeah.
So
It's the 2.5
So it is
months.
year 2 and year 3 of the contract in theory if you ignore the balance of this year.
Right.
And her comparison, I think, Republic, they quote that in there, so I don't recall what she said there. Republic would go to 97.7 and 101.67.
Right, and so those are, considerably lower. However, we'd have to quickly open up a contract negotiation to make that happen.
And I don't know what
At
that
what
would
cost?
look like.
Potentially.
Yeah, and then,
And
I'm sure there'll be an
US
offset on their request to say if they're not hauling,
Where was Republic going?
Springfield.
Springfield versus Agawam.
Right. Depending on where it is in Springfield, it may be closer.
So to say, to some degree, it's one of those. It's a change, even if it's not a change. So, right, I don't know that that's advantageous. I guess I would say.
Just for context, just so anybody who's listening, nobody is obviously nobody enjoys scrambling like this.
Yeah.
Nobody's envying this position, and to be fair to the haulers, while these prices are not pleasant for us to consider, to their credit, they've been very responsive to communities and trying to find a proposal that works for them and trying to understand that communities are in a bind. Obviously, they need to be successful and they need to make money, so obviously their prices are coming from that understanding, but in a few instances, prices started out higher, and they were able to go back to them and say, we really that's not in the budget for this year. This is an unanticipated change for us, and we can't do it. And they've come back and they've tried to sharpen the pencil. So, even though these prices are startling, there has been some work to find some common ground.
And then if I read her chart right, USA includes CPIU as well. So, whatever their starting basis is, then it's the same
Right.
formula to get there. So,
Right.
and Wilbraham, don't know what
Right.
that would do to the hauling obviously. So,
I'm assuming that email from Jan was just to you, and
yeah, do you want me to send it to you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you don't
It's,
mind.
Yeah, let me forward that to you.
I was looking through my stuff thinking maybe I missed it, but
There was so many emails going.
Yeah, there was just a lot of that noise, and then it was reissued with an updated numbers, and yeah, so it got a little messy there. For some reason, my email is not being very responsive. You'll get it in a minute when it starts working again. So at Agawam, basically where it's landing now through USA, we'd be at 97 to start, and then CPI. Casella would be 93.50 to move to Holyoke, and then CPI. So, dollars for dollar, that decision economically would be just to have Casella handle it.
Right.
And we'll just put it out there. We've had some concerns and issues with weights with Casella, so I'm cautious about that being. But back to what it used to be, which is the hauler is also the disposal site. Not that we shouldn't, but just. Are they still tipping? Are they still weighing in here? Excuse me.
No.
Okay, that stopped, right? That was
We did stop. We did it for a few
short-term,
months,
but-
yeah.
Yeah. But things seem to be in order since we've done the sticker program and those things, right?
Sticker program helped.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's headed to you all now. I will just bring the, I mean, I don't know where anyone's leaning, but I'll just throw this out there. If we are discussing the hauling contract because the location's changed. From where we're sitting here today, when we're in Erving at least, versus going to Agawam, assuming I found the right places, Republic is, 7 miles shorter and 18 minutes faster than Agawam. So I think there's a fair argument to say it shouldn't cost them more, so it shouldn't cost us more. But again, that'd be a negotiation, right?
Right.
What I will say is if we let Casella take it in Holyoke, that's 15 plus miles and 25 minutes faster, and I assume they were going back to Holyoke after they picked up, if that's their home base, after they dropped off and tipped, if that's their home base anyway. So you can add that on again in terms of what it's going to save Casella. So I would want to argue, or at least ask, what will you do in the hauling contract if we were to take your offer on the disposal contract for Holyoke?
Okay.
That would be just my feeling initially. Is that help us offset that a little, at least for the next couple of years? And, appreciate that they came back with a little bit lower number. I think what they offered already was an adjustment from the initial offer, but then just saying, what, on the other side of our total cost of trash, what, if anything, would you be willing to do on that side of it? Because to me, there's some savings for them there too.
right, if they're not hauling as far.
Well, not only not as far, but then I would assume the return trip to their station. So if
It's
they're
less.
just landing in the same place and I'm just going to where I end my day, then that travel back from Agawam to their home base as well may be savings. So
Right.
just that overall savings. And I'm not saying that it's significant in dollars to the overall thing, but it will, does that add anything? If that's the direction we want to go, and I don't know if it is. And it's an exercise. It's an option exercise on our hauling contract. We haven't exercised. We don't know. There's opportunity for price renegotiation in those years, right? In 4 and 5. I don't remember it, but it's not fixed escalation, right?
I think there were percentage increases, but the choice to extend is yours.
Okay.
You have a 3-year contract with 3 years of pricing already fixed,
And then 1 and 1.
and then 1 and 1 at a percentage increase. I can't recall off the top of my head what that percentage is, but it's at
So you
your
think it's at a
extension.
fixed increase?
I think
as
it
well?
is.
Okay. Interesting.
But it's not a formula like.
Right, well, that's kind of what I'm wondering. It's not either negotiable at that time by the vendor or via a variable calculation.
Right. I also propose to the town of Gill, and obviously it's up to the two respective select boards, that maybe the next time we keep ending up with the same hauler and
Do a
the
collaborative.
collections sort of go well together. We have similar sized communities, and so it becomes advantageous for a hauling company to try to win both contracts. It's just happened the last two times we've done it, even though we've done them independently and at different times. So it just may make sense to accept that may lend us some purchasing power and have both towns do a joint procurement for the next trash contract and negotiate that just out of the gate. So we're paying the same rates, we're paying the same, they're buying the same truck, they're paying the same staff. It keeps everything a little more streamlined.
Do you know where they're going as far as the immediate need of how long out they're going? Because if we're going to look for
They have a
future
similar
procurement.
contract duration as us.
Okay.
They ended up,
For hauling.
they were with
For haul-
USA,
yeah.
correct. And then we did the procurement, we ended up with Casella. I assumed they were staying with USA, and next thing you know, they had Casella. So I believe they're on the exact same schedule as us.
Well, and if I recall, there's like not a very plentiful response to these things, so we
Right.
have limited options when we've
Yeah.
done them anyway.
Two, I think, were you had Casella and
Well,
USA
they were
the last time.
qualified. They were qualified offerings. I don't even know if there was another unqualified response.
Right.
Either way.
Do you need it this evening?
You all don't have to make any decision tonight. I mean, I will have to figure out something for Friday, but
Well,
if I
that's
can find
my-
a
yeah,
blank
that's my
spot for
concern.
Well, I was
Friday-
going to say we don't
Putting
really
in-
have to
Oh,
sign
when
a
is the-
contract tonight or decide on a contract tonight, but we do need to send it somewhere.
Yeah.
And I can take care of that for
I
1
mean,
week.
there's
if you
a
all are okay with that.
we show up with a truck rate, I'm sure, at Aldi stations, right? Because we don't want to pay that for very long.
No, but I'm saying if we have to do it for 1 week.
Oh yeah, for 2 or 3 weeks or a
Yeah.
month until we
Until
make
we-
a decision.
Okay. Which I'm sure that showing up at the door is probably closer to the 100 plus.
I don't even want to speculate how
Yeah.
much north of 100 it is, but I bet you it's north.
Yeah, but if if we're only doing that for a couple of weeks until we can,
Yeah.
I'd like to have something solidified by our next meeting
Okay.
if we
And,
can.
and I'd argue if there was an advantage or a reason to wait until year end, we could do it till then if we had to. I'd rather not, but we could.
True.
Because it's not that far away.
Couple
Fiscal year
two and a
end,
half
fiscal
months.
year end,
Yeah,
right,
2.5
right,
months.
right. But yeah, I agree with you. I'd rather be somewhere else.
So let me
Or
get-
have something solidified before then.
So let me get you some more information for your next meeting. In the meantime, if I was to instruct the hauler to just take it to Holyoke in the short term, and we'll
I-
watch the weights and ask for the tear
I would,
sheets.
yeah, and I would just ask them, can they, in the interim, while we're making that decision,
Of
take it
course.
at the rate that they've offered?
Right.
We're trying to go through the numbers right now, but can they,
Right.
could they do that for us until we can come to a decision and
Right.
finalize stuff? That would
Okay.
be appreciated for a week or two. 2 weeks at this point at least, right?
Right.
Until we,
And then
we'll hopefully have a decision from there. So I have the question about the hauling. If they're bringing it only to Holyoke in the future, what does that change anything in the hauling numbers?
Yep.
Do either of you have anything else to get before then? I know Jan and obviously, a lot of surrounding towns are doing work too. So if they come up with anything else that's
Right.
fruitful or beneficial to the towns, I mean, they're sharing. It's all
All the
being
towns are
shared.
sharing the
so.
information. Yep.
So we'd have that too. But is there anything else?
I don't know.
I am curious about CPIU historically. I feel
Yeah.
like, is that 6.6 just high? I don't even want to say it's high. Is it high right now? Because everything's high right now.
right.
Or is it historically always been north of 5? Or should we
Got it.
assume 5 is normal if inflation is
Is
not
not.
abnormal?
Right. Yeah, let me get that for you.
Okay. 5 feels like a high number to me.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, has CPI always been in that range? Then maybe for that calculation it's not. But
Okay.
and if someone knows is there some specialty about CPIU Northeast or what
Right.
that is? I'm curious, but it's maybe less material.
No problem.
Do either of you have anything else on that one?
Nope.
No, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all.
Yeah. I have no idea the reasons why they filed for bankruptcy, but
Yep.
maybe that favorable rate wasn't favorable.
It's possible.
Don't know. At least we had it for as long as we did.
Yep.
Okay, the approval of the annual town election warrant for May 2nd, 2022 is our next topic.
And the only reason we're doing this is because we're holding the annual town meeting warrant till the end of the month, and it wouldn't give us the necessary posting time for the election warrant. Typically, we do both warrants in the same motion. So I worked with the chairman, and I worked with the town clerk, and we broke them out as to a separate warrant.
Any concerns?
I have no concerns.
No.
Make a motion, we sign the annual town election warrant for Monday, May 2nd, 2022, as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
With that, we're at the end of the planned agenda. Any other items for this evening? We are planning to meet again on the 25th, joint meeting with the Finance Committee, and expecting to close the annual town meeting warrant that night, and meeting minutes that we moved forward. Anything else that anyone has to put on the agenda at the moment?
Not at the moment.
Okay,
I just sent you a
I saw.
link.
Thank
Yeah.
you for the CPA.
There's a chart in there.
Okay.
And it's
Oh, about historical?
It's much lower going back to 2018, 1.7, 1.3, 2.4, 1.2, and then the anomaly of 2022 is 6.6.
So directionally, the 5%,
The 5%.
or CPI higher is maybe double-ish of the average CPI? It sounded like historically.
So it's subject to change as well.
Well, they had said a 5% minimum floor,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's
They said-
5% no matter what, unless the CPI is higher, then it's higher. Then it's the CPI.
Right. And this is the only time the CPI has ever been higher.
That's kind of what I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah, there's a table A
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
Changes.
A reminder, not that we have the purchasing power that makes this a useful statement, but just to remind you that under 30B, trash disposal is a service, and the hauling associated with it are services that are exempt from 30B. You don't have to do the sale procurement process. We typically do that because you want to have a competitive open market. It's a best practice. It's not a requirement. So there is nothing stopping you from counter-proposing on any of these proposals with a rate that you think is fair. They don't have to take it. They don't have to agree to it, but you can negotiate as much as you want with any of these haulers.
Okay. And they said June, so your June 12 months was what you were quoting, I assume? 12-month averages. Yeah. Okay. So it'll go to Holyoke for now.
Okay.
We'll hopefully come to a decision next meeting.
Okay.
Anything else
Yes.
tonight?
No.
Nope.
Make a motion to adjourn at 8:31 PM.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.